Hello, friends. This is wonderful. My name is Angela Denise Davis. I'm the creative director for ZAMI NOBLA, the National Organization of Black Lesbians on Aging. And we are so glad that you've joined us here for Plant Play, which is our food series that will extend into the early part of next year, where we will be talking about plant-based nutrition, finding great recipes to keep us on track, and just to enjoy how to feast upon food in our area in a healthy way to support better living. We are excited and honored today to have our presenter with us, Carla Rabb DeRosa. She is a certified food medicine educator, and raw foods instructor known for her transformative work in natural healing and wellness. And she has a story to go along with that information. I want to encourage you to read her bio, which we will have in the chat, and you can get some more information about her that way. If you've had a chance to listen to the ZAMI NOBLA podcast, you will know that she was our most recent guest and gave an incredible interview about her past work and how she really came to transform her own life with natural food and healing around 2010. So check out that episode if you've not listened to it before, and it's really wonderful. At this time, I will bring on the woman of the hour, Carla Rabb DeRosa, who will walk us into some wonderful plant play this morning. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, ZAMI NOBLA. It's really great to be here with you, and I'm very excited about our menu for today and the recipes that we're going to do. Actually, we're going to do 4 recipes because I have 3, I would say, each of them could be their own entree, but we have 3 food dishes and we have a drink dish as well. So let me go ahead and give you the menu, and then I'll give you a little bit of my story. And also I'll tell you how I came up with this menu. So we're going to have sweet potato sausage, rockstar greens, which is one of my signature raw food recipes that I prepare. I have done that so many times at different demos. It's usually what I give out when I'm doing the expo, and people love it. And also we're going to have Gullah red cauliflower rice. So we're substituting our rice with cauliflower today. So all of these recipes are plant-based. And let me tell you a little bit about me, a little bit of how I got here, and then I'll tie how I chose that recipe. And we're also going to have a tea. We're going to have a sorrel tea with Life Everlasting and lemongrass. And we'll go over that as well. So those are the 4 things that we're putting together today. And as we said, it's going to be recorded. I have the recipes for you to download. After talking to the team, we would like to engage you by having you actually make the recipes, take pictures of your recipes, and send them in to us. And we're going to surprise you with how we're going to use those pictures. But we encourage you to take notes. You're going to have the recipe in writing, so you'll be ready to go. And also, I've calculated how much it's going to cost you at the grocery store for each meal. So you may have heard the podcast, so I'll make it really quick. I think it was around 2008, 2009, I was having extreme digestive problems. But I had digestive problems really all my life. And I had gone to several doctors. I wasn't able to get any resolution. I went to a GI doctor. They wanted to do all sorts of tests, poking and prodding, putting radiation in my body to take pictures. And I said, hold that thought, give me a few months, let me see what I can do. And so I started doing an elimination diet by eliminating different things out of my diet, because they didn't have any recommendation for foods, but I knew that some foods had me feel better than others. And really, I kind of got down to raw fruits and vegetables. And I knew that I just couldn't live on that. So I went to the Living Foods Institute in Atlanta when I lived in Atlanta. And it was a 10-day course. I learned how to prepare raw food. I had already been doing plant-based in my mind, but honestly, I was doing a lot of processed foods. My grocery store was Sam's Club. So I was not, even though I had eliminated meat from my diet at that point in my life, I was not necessarily utilizing all the micronutrition and the supportive agency of good plant foods and good plant recipes. Well, the Living Foods Institute changed all that. Within, I think, 6 months of leaving there, I had lost 60 pounds, which a lot was water weight from inflammation from eating foods that didn't agree with me. Also, I had been pre-diabetic. I reversed that. I was having blood pressure spikes. I reversed that. So, and all those lifetime of digestion issues went away. They were very minimized as my body got used to more fiber, more micronutrients. So that's how I got into doing this work, is because it really impacted my life in such a significant way that I just said, hey, I wish that I could share this with people. So after I left the Living Foods Institute, I started doing like just pop-up food shares. We would do raw food recipes. Then I started doing expos, and I wrote a book. Some of you may be aware that I have Rock Your Life. These are the 21 delicious plant-based recipes. These are the supportive recipes that I started with. And so it just kind of created its own career. And I love it. I feel like that I'm an expert in food medicine. I'm certified in that, but also in a person who's learned to adapt, because I came from Black women who made really delicious food. When I thought about just eating raw food, primarily when I was healing my body, I was really turned off because the raw food I had did not taste good. It just was not delicious. So it was my mission to say, well, if I want to, keep my digestion going, keep my body healthy, and I'm going to eat raw food, plant-based food, I have to find a way to make it taste good. So that's been my mission, and I've been successful, and I want to share it with you. And so during COVID, I moved from Atlanta to where I am now, which is St. Helena, South Carolina, which is also known as Gullah Island. So you may have watched Gullah Island on PBS when you were growing up. I know a lot of people did. And it depicted the culture of this region. And actually the Gullah Geechee culture, it goes all the way from the bottom of North Carolina all the way down to Florida, down the East Coast. And there's a woman here named Queen Quet, and she's petitioned the United Nations to recognize the indigenous people from this area, the native people from this area, as the Gullah Geechee Nation, as its own nation. And what's so amazing about that is that it has a lot of rich culture, because I think it's like 80-something% of the Africans who were kidnapped and stolen from their homelands were brought through Charleston. And so St. Helena is about an hour and 45 minutes from Charleston. So the islands, particularly like St. Helena, they were able to hold on to a lot of their culture and a lot of their African culture. And so that's what we call the Gullah Geechee culture today. So I have just loved being in this region for the last few years. And with one of the recipes, the Gullah red cauliflower rice, I even incorporated that and also into the drink. And I'll talk about that more. So that's kind of how I got to raw foods, how I got to plant-based foods, and how I got to this region and how I came up with this menu. This menu kind of represents, we got our sweet potato sausage, we got our Gullah red rice made from cauliflower, and we have our greens, which here collards we're doing kale today, but collards are just the staple. But also with the Rockstar greens, you can substitute collards as well. Also, I mix them, and we'll talk about that. But let's get to the first recipe. If there aren't any burning questions that's come up so far, I'll get started. So we're going to do the sweet potato sausage, which most people would say sweet potatoes and sausage. That doesn't even go in the same sentence, but it does. So I came up with this recipe, and I'll show it on both cameras. These are some sweet potato sausage patties, and we're going to make them several ways today. But I have a little basil here, but these are like sausage patties. These are actually raw. I put them in the dehydrator, but today we're also going to make some that are pan fried, and also we're going to make sweet potato sausage crumbles. So here's some sweet potato sausage crumbles that we are going to put into our Gullah red rice, because that's how you eat Gullah red rice. You have your sausage tossed in there. So let's get started. So the ingredients include, of course, your sweet potatoes, and I started to process them. You'll see that I measured things out, pre-measured, and started to pre-process just to save time. So we'll have time for questions. So you're not just waiting while I'm chopping. So we got our sweet potatoes. We have onion, diced onion. That's going to be a part of your sweet potato patties. To hold it all together, very important, ground flaxseed. So flaxseed is like your binder in this recipe, and in many plant-based recipes, you can use ground flaxseed as your binder. It gives you a lot of omega-3s, which is something very important as we age for our brain to have good fats. So anytime you can use flax, you should. This is ground. So flaxseed is very protective of itself. If it's not soaked or it's not ground, you're not getting nearly as much of the nutrients that you could get from grinding it. The other thing about it, though, is once you grind it, and I have some that I ground in advance. You keep it in the refrigerator. You keep your flax seeds in the refrigerator, because I know that many times we get them and they're shelf stable, but once you grind them down, the oil inside starts to degrade very quickly. So the rest of our ingredients, besides our ground flaxseed and our diced onions and sweet potatoes, are our seasonings. And you can see that there's a lot. And the reason why there's a lot is because it takes a lot to season sausage. Even when you're making sausage out of other products, like meat products, they use a lot of different seasonings. So we have salt, which I recommend pink Himalayan salt or Celtic salt. I do not recommend at any level iodized white salt. It's really not even a food. and it causes a lot of inflammation and water retention. So your mineral salt, whether it be Himalayan salt or Celtic salt, you have your garlic powder, onion powder, oregano. We have some pepper. A big part of making your sweet potato transform into sausage is this seasoning here, which is your sage. You gotta have sage for your sausage, okay? And then this one is very important as well. This is your cumin. So we have 1 teaspoon of cumin, and we have 2 tablespoons of fennel seeds. That's another essential part of transforming your sweet potatoes into sausage. And here is pepper. So it is called Berber. You could also use red pepper flakes if you wanted to make it just slightly spicy. That's the purpose of it. And because most of the time you have some sausage, it's a little bit spicy. Okay, so those are our seasonings. So you can see that it's very whole food based. The processing we're going to do is with a Vitamix. So everything is recognizable. There is no preservatives. So when you do have your sweet potatoes that you do in the dehydrator, you want to keep them safe. You want to keep them in the refrigerator. That will keep them safe for you. And also cooking up your sausage meat will keep it safe. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to grind up the sweet potatoes into your sausage substance. Your sausage, I hate to say meat, but so I have already started it. So you want a rough chop. You're going to do a small batch at a time. The recipe calls for 4 cups of sweet potato crumbles. All right, so we're just going to take this out, and I can try to show here. It's just like small, tiny flakes, not completely mushy, but I do have some mushy parts at the bottom, and that's going to help it hold together. One of the reasons why I selected sweet potatoes to try my sausage recipe with is because sweet potatoes have beta carotene. They're very antioxidant. When they're raw, they're very supportive of the pancreas. The pancreas is the organ that helps us manage our insulin in our body, and diabetes and prediabetes, and they even changed the word from juvenile diabetes because it's just so prolific. It's just endemic in this country. So sweet potatoes are something that for some reason scientists can't even explain, but it's very supportive of the pancreas. But they have to be raw because you see when you cook them, they make their own sugar. They make their own kind of like a syrup that runs out of them. But before that, the fiber really slows down the burning of the sugar within them. So they're very low glycemic themselves. And they really support the pancreas and help to heal it if you're trying to move off of the range of being pre-diabetic or diabetic. It really helps to heal the pancreas. And that's the only thing that is going to help heal it is if you have foods that have agency over the domain of healing it. Because of course, we know medicine is just moving the numbers, but it's not necessarily healing the organ. Okay, so I'm going to run my other batch. So you see, it doesn't take that long to kind of work it into your sausage. I have a couple of big pieces that I'll pull out. And sometimes I'll collect the big pieces and then I'll just run them through. run them through again in order to conserve them. So some foods I recommend that you get organic, and sweet potatoes are one of those because they're coming from the ground. So whatever farm is growing them, whatever runoff they have, whether it be animal waste runoff or pesticides runoff, it will run into the potato patches. So I definitely recommend go organic when you can. All right, so I'm going to pull out some of these bigger pieces. If I have time, I'll run them again later. So we have 4 cups of our crumbles, our sweet potato crumbles. And I'll take a few of these. You can see these bigger pieces that are totally usable, but they're not going to make the best sausage patties because you really want your sweet potatoes to be about the same texture throughout. So I just had a few, not too many. All right. So now we're just going to add all our ingredients. It's very simple. Flax seed for binding. Our onions, just because we like onions, and they combine with the other savory flavors to give it a very meat-like, a satisfying meat-like flavor. So the onion powder, the garlic powder, your oregano, your 2 tablespoons of fennel seed, your pepper, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of sage, and your half teaspoon of black pepper. So once you get it together, just like if you were making sausage from another way, if you were making sausage from meat, you would run the flavors together, the temperature from your hand and the moisture from your hands, from the sweet potatoes, help to melt into the flaxseed to help it bind to make your patties. So like I said, you can make your patties 3 ways. So you can make your patties raw, like the ones I share with you. Just about palm-sized patty. If you were making them raw, you would put it on your dehydrator tray, like this, like so. And of course, the thinner, the faster it's going to dehydrate. Now, if you're going to make them to store, you could dehydrate them like 24 hours, and they will be very, very hard. And they will store for a long time. If you were making them to have them fresh, that you could put in the refrigerator, like these were put into the refrigerator, you can dehydrate them for as little as like 8 hours. And then you would have, it would be crispy enough and formed enough like this, but it's not like brittle hard. If you go 24 hours, they're going to be brittle hard. So I'm going to make a few patties for the dehydrator tray, and I'll make a few patties I'm going to pan fry them for you. So that way you can see your cooked option. And then I'll take the rest of the crumbles and then I'll put them in the pan, and then we'll have those as like a chopped meat crumble. All right, so I'm going to put I'll put 3 in a pan. I'm just gonna put a small amount of oil in the pan. Are there any questions about the sweet potato sausage?
There's one question from Leah G, who asked, if you do not have a blender or food processor, is there a way to still get the same consistency with the potatoes?
So because sweet potatoes are so hard, I really, I have seen like, indigenous women beat and beat and beat them. But I would say that a more practical way is using a Vitamix. So a Vitamix is a high power blender or a food processor. You could try to make them out of sweet potato shreds. You could shred them and use more flaxseed to bind them. They're going to be different. They're going to be more like hash browns, but that is, a hand option to shred them and use more flaxseed. But I would say if you're really interested into getting into whole foods, a good blender is very important. So the Vitamix that I got, this one I got used. You can get Vitamix base used for a very good price. And this one is 10 years old. No. Actually, this one is 14 years old. And I've only had to have one repair. And it wasn't really a mechanical repair. It was one of the gears. So I highly recommend it if you're moving toward whole food, because one of the reasons why we move from processed to whole food is to keep our bodies clean, to keep our body healthy. But we can process our own foods and make any texture using a food processor, a good food processor, and or a blender. So I highly recommend it. I got my food processor in a barter. I got my blender used, so it doesn't have to be really, really expensive. Vitamix is the top of the line. But honestly, I see many, many, many people reselling their Vitamix at Facebook Marketplace, different places like that, because they don't get into it. So they don't get the return on their investment. I mean, these things are like $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800, and people buy them and they don't use them. So they're very much available on the market. And you may say, well, I don't want to use blender. I don't know what they put into it. You could always buy a brand new canister, but the base is where the value is. And those can be recycled. One more commercial for Vitamix. I used to work for Vitamix. They're American-made company, very fair. Prices are very good in terms of repair and sending them back. So I highly recommend that you invest in one, but you can also use your shredder. Any other questions?
Yes. So Lara Davis asked, can you talk about when to use fresh versus dried seasonings with recipes, like the sage, for example?
That's a good question. So I haven't used fresh sage, for example, in my sausage, but that's a good idea. And it would probably be great. A lot of the seasonings are dry to keep them stable, to have them be available. And also with sage is one of those that becomes even stronger. The flavor becomes stronger. But you'll see when we get to our Rockstar greens, which I think I'll do the Rockstar greens next. Maybe we'll see. When we get to the next Rockstar greens, the original recipe, I used to use garlic powder and onion powder, but I switched to using fresh garlic and fresh onion. So in my mind, they're interchangeable. You want to play with it, and you'll see when you look at my recipes, it leaves a lot of room for play. I tell you how I do it. A lot of things you want to season to taste. And the reason why I do it that way is because that's how I prepare food. And that's how Black women have been teaching each other how to prepare food, through story, through taste, not through strict measurements. But that's a good question. I use fresh and I also use dry. Any other questions before?
Yeah. We'll just do one more. So Mary Ann and Spencer Hope Davis are asking similar questions about what oil would you recommend to use? Olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, or something else?
So I like coconut oil. Right now, coconut oil can have like the sweet, flavor of coconut. So right now I'm using avocado oil. I used to teach a lot with olive oil, and I talked to Angela a lot about this in the podcast, but it's hard to know the quality and the source of olive oil because it's become almost like a commodity, like a drug. So you don't know what they're cutting it with. You don't know if it's pure. So I just morally have a problem with recommending things that cannot be sourced in a normal way. So I use this organic avocado oil, and I use organic coconut oil, olive oil. If it's very, very expensive, if it's imported, if it's in a dark glass jar, I may mess with it. Otherwise, it's so much shenanigans with olive oil, it's hard for me to recommend it. Right? So I'm going to move and clean up for my next recipe. Time is going by fast. So let's go to the Rockstar greens. So these, like I said, this is the sweet potatoes that I would run through again if we weren't on a time schedule. If we were just chilling, I definitely wouldn't throw those away, and I'm definitely not going to throw them away. So our next recipe is going to be our Rockstar greens. And so this was my substitute for, the collards and the kale and the greens that I grew up with that had pork in them. Of course, they're very, very tasty, but going plant-based and also wanting to incorporate more raw food, I'm like, okay, so how can I make this taste as savory and delicious as the collard greens and the other greens that I had, the turnip greens growing up? So this is the recipe that I came up with. And this is, like I said, a signature recipe that I do a lot of demos with. And you'll have to pardon me as I keep an eye on our sausage. I'm toasting up 3 of our patties that we made. And also I have loose sausage that I'm making into crumbles. And in order to get like that little like toasted edge, you have to have it on medium heat. If you have it on low heat, just imagine, you know how sweet potatoes are. If you have them on low heat, it's kind of like baking them. So it's going to get softer and softer. So you got to have it on like a medium high heat. And that way also you got to keep your eye on it to get that edge. But our sausages are looking really, really good, especially the patties. I think actually I'm going to take them out. Oh, also it tells you in the recipe when you're doing the pan fried patties for your sweet potato sausages. Oh, that one needs a little bit more time. That you can use a little bit more of the flaxseed as a binder to keep them together. And I didn't do that, but let me show you. You see how you got your nice little toasted edge? That's really tasty in the sausage. It brings out all the flavor, and then you have that harder texture that kind of reminds you of like, when you have like a little seared burger or seared meat or something like that. So our sausage, our pan-fried sausage came out really, really good. And but you can see also that this one, let's see, this one right here kind of came apart a little bit. I could have used a little bit more of the flaxseed, the ground flaxseed as the binder. All right. So moving to our rockstar greens. People always ask about protein as it relates to plant-based diet. And so one of the things that I always remind people of is that, you know, when you see these large animals like cows and horses that just eat sometimes just one green, like some horses are completely raised on alfalfa, just one green. And they're still able to make plenty of muscles. They're not eating any complete proteins. And the reason why they're able to just eat the greens and have proteins be formed in their body is through the miracle of amino acids. So I know you've heard of the 9 essential amino acids. Well, plants have the amino acids. We eat them, we consume them. The amino acids help to form the proteins that help our muscles get big. So you can get a lot of protein, or really you're getting the essential amino acids, you're getting the building blocks of protein from your plants, especially from your greens. So I have most of them already shredded, but for the time lapse effect of making these recipes, but I did want to show you how to chop it up, how to chop up your rockstar greens, because the rockstar greens, if you can see this, they're very thin, very small. You want to spend some time on your cutting board, especially if you're transitioning to raw food or you don't really eat raw food. The worst thing to do is to eat a bunch of hard greens that are in a big mass. And the more we say that the more work you do on the cutting board, the less your digestion has to do. And so you want to, open it up, get the chlorophyll from your greens, and you can do that. You can help your body with that, with cutting them up very well. Just want to move the sausage around, make sure it doesn't get stuck. All right, so these are the kale that I got from my garden. So I'm going to show you how to cut up these greens. You're going to keep all of your stem. That's where your weight is. That's where your minerals are. That's where your water is. So I know that we see some people just take the greens off. How dare them? We pay for that stem. We're going to use it. So I line all my leaves together and I roll them up in a bunch. I put the stems really on the inside of the bunch. And then I make my greens into a roll. And this is how we get to use those good stems. And now we're going to slice through the stem and make them small. So watch your fingers. You're going to do your claw. You're going to bring your fingertips back. So I like to cut through one way and then cut the other way to make tiny rectangles is what I'm going for. But using those stems is going to make it very nutritious. So this was just the kind of demo how we got to the shredding. The other ones I did in advance. It's going for about a pound for the recipe. Okay. And you can mix your Rockstar greens with your raw sweet potato shreds. Again, that sweet potato is for, hey, you tell me, what organ does the raw sweet potato support?
Pancreas.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So it's two parts of the recipe, the greens and the sweet potatoes. And the other part is the vegan mayo. So I'm going to make the vegan mayo right quick. So a cup of cashews. The recipe says a half a cup of water. And it really, really depends. It depends on your onion, how watery your onion is. So the recipe calls for a small onion. You're just going to trim it and rough chop it because we're going to blend it into our mayo, right? And especially in raw food prep, you can always add more, but you can't take it out as easy. So that goes for, especially for water and salt. So when I have them, when I'm dealing with salt and water, I always put in a small amount and then see what I need, because I can always put in more, but it's hard to take it out. All right. So I got my onions, my cashews, my nutritional yeast, 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. The recipe calls for 2 small garlic or a large garlic. So I have a large garlic here. So I think actually that one doesn't look that great. Okay, I'm just going to use one large clove of garlic, a splash of apple cider vinegar, just for a little kick. Okay, and that's all we need for our mayonnaise. So I'm just going to start with a splash of water. We may not need 2 to 3 tablespoons. We'll see what that onion does. Oh, that vegan mayo is so good. It's hard to describe. But this was one of the recipes that I adjusted. It used to have olive oil, and in my book, it does ask for olive oil. But I decided I don't necessarily always know what the olive oil situation is, as I explained before, but you always know cashews. And so let's just make some cashew mayonnaise. Give me one moment. Add a little bit on my face. All right. So then we take our vegan mayo. We're going to work it through our Rockstar greens. Again, very good savory flavor. You can identify every aspect of it. You could also do, if you wanted to be fancy, you could do macadamia. If you're on a budget, you can do sunflower seeds, raw sunflower seeds. And you're getting your fat from your nuts, so you don't need the olive oil. And then just like the sausage, I'm just going to work. And if you prefer, you can use a spoon. It's just easier for me, I feel, to massage the mayonnaise, the vegan mayonnaise, into the greens with my gloved hands. So I also, in the recipe, I'm offering some optional ingredients So when I would serve this in schools to kids, kids like the sugar. I would add the dried cranberries, like the ocean spray, and the kids loved it. So if you're an adult who doesn't really like greens, but you're willing to give it a try, but you need some incentive, you could add your ocean spray. My body with this menopause is not really responding that well to sugar. So also you can use pomegranate. And so I have a half of pomegranate seeds. And just imagine if you showed up at your holiday festivities with this beautiful dish. You had some pomegranates on top. Now, doesn't that look good? So festive. And that's your Rockstar Greens. Can you see? I don't know if this camera's picking up. All right. So that's your Rockstar Greens. And I wanted to show you because I had a close friend. We were at the market the other day and I picked up a pomegranate and they were like, whatever about the pomegranate, because they had thoughts that it was hard to open, it was hard to fix, it was hard to. So I just wanted to give just a short demo of how you can get your seeds out of your pomegranate right quick with really no hassle. But I cut it in half. This is the other half of the pomegranate. I have a bowl of water. You just open it underneath the water and the seeds just pop out. They just pop off. You just kind of massage them and they come right off the pomegranate. So this is half of that half already seeds off. And so the seeds kind of float on the bottom and you just scoop them up. So it's really nothing to it. And they're really delicious, antioxidant. They're a great snack. And they're very abundant because where we get them from, someplace in the Middle East, they're having their season where they're harvesting them. So I say go for it. These things in the summertime are $3 and $4 because they're out of season, but now they're only like $1.50. You could get 2 for $3, even at the expensive stores. So very, very easy to peel them and get the seeds out. No muss, no fuss. You just sear the side of it with a knife and you just open it up and the seeds pop out into your water. So any questions about the Rockstar Greens?
Yeah, there's a few. So Veronica and Dolores are asking about what type of kale you're growing. Veronica mentioned that she is growing dinosaur kale in her garden.
Oh, okay. That's white Siberian kale. And you could tell because it's like the stem is white. But you could use dinosaur kale in this recipe and it's really, really good because you can see the vegan mayo is heavy. So the heavier the greens, the better. It works well on dinosaur kale. It works well on collards. You could put a little mustard and turnip, although they have a very strong flavor. So I wouldn't recommend doing a whole bowl of turnips or a whole pound. I would mix it into the sweeter ones like the white Siberian kale, the dinosaur kale, the collards. You can mix in your mustard and turnips and give your family a different spin on greens.
Thank you. Edith Bigger is also asking what your recommendation for a cutting board is, if titanium is worth it or if it's just a hype.
I do like products that have high-end finishes. Like this bowl is a titanium bowl on the inside. I do think that if you're using your equipment a lot, over time, you're absorbing whatever finish is on your equipment. This is a bamboo cutting board that I use that I've had for years with, wooden bamboo cutting boards. They're porous, so you have to pour mineral oil into them. You have to use bleach to kill any bacteria that could get into the more porous areas. So that's why like a titanium, a real tight board is definitely gonna be less likely to hold bacteria. Now, is it worth the hundreds of dollars? I don't know. That's up to you. I don't have one yet.
And then one final question. Michelle is asking, how long will the mayo keep in the refrigerator?
That's a good question. So the rule for raw food is usually 3 to 4 days. So yes, you do have to be mindful of the mayonnaise because, you're using fresh garlic, fresh, onions. And I've been able to use it. The garlic really keeps it fresh because garlic and the onions really are antibacterial. But I would just, like you do any fresh food, I would smell it, I would look at it, but 3 to 4 days is the rule. All right. So our sweet potato sausage crumbles are ready. And so you could use this in a meal, like if you were making some pasta or something like that, you can use these crumbles. I just wanted to show you, like we got that good sear edging. It gives that crunch. The smell is just amazing with the cumin and the sage and the fennel. You would not know that this is sweet potato. You would not know because it smells so savory. The mouthfeel, of course, is sweet potatoes. So it's not pork. So it's going to be a little bit different. That's why I like to sear it because, of course, it's a little bit softer than pork sausage would be. But I guarantee you it's delicious. You would love it. You will love it when you make it and take a picture and send it to ZAMI NOBLA. All right. So it's 12:15. We're ending at 12:30. So let me get on this red rice. I wanted to make you a plate. But we got one more recipe. Well, actually, let me take a break from the processing and let me serve you your beverage. So to pair with this down-home Gullah meal, we made some Life Everlasting Sorrel, or some people say Sorrel, Life Everlasting, and lemongrass tea. So these are the dry teas. So I brewed them together. Lemongrass grows very well in this climate. Life Everlasting is it's just a well-known wild herb. She is so wild, very hard to cultivate, but very valuable in this region. It's also known as rabbit tobacco, but we really like to call it Life Everlasting because many of the centurions who would drink their Life Everlasting, it seemed like they would live forever here in the Gullah region. So we named it Life Everlasting, and it is very mild. It really doesn't have a strong taste at all. You just brew these up, you combine them and brew these up. You're mostly going to taste the sorrel. Now, sorrel is very much similar to okra plant. So it's related to the okra plant, but the okra plant will make the yellow flowers that eventually turn to okra, whereas the sorrel plants make the purple flowers that you can use for tea, and is tracked all the way back to Africa. And this is your sorrel lemongrass life everlasting tea. Last but not least, we're going to make our cauliflower rice, Gullah red rice style. And just quickly, one of the reasons why there's red rice in this region, why this recipe is so well known, is it is directly related to jollof, Nigerian red rice. And that's why this region is so valuable, is because of the geography of being islands. The African culture, once it came here, it kind of stayed here because it was difficult for people to leave the islands. You would have to leave by boat. Now we have bridges, but up until recently, last 10 years, you would have to come by boat. So the African culture that stayed here kind of grew here. So the Gullah red rice is related to Nigerian jollof rice. So it's really rice with a spicy tomato base. And when I say spicy, it doesn't necessarily have to be hot, but it's well seasoned, as you can see. Garlic, turmeric, cumin. This is the smoked paprika, salt, your Himalayan salt. And I used the red chili flakes here and pepper. Also, what's in your tomato paste? Some red pepper and some onion and fresh tomatoes and 16 pieces of dried tomatoes. So all of these ingredients here will make your tomato paste. Now, you may just want to buy some tomato paste and use that. That's fine. But this is how you can make your own tomato paste that you can use in the Gullah red rice recipe, or you can use for anything that you make. You can make your own paste and you know exactly what's in it. All right, so let's make our paste. Let's make our paste and then we'll make our rice and then we'll close it up. So we got our tomatoes, our sun-dried tomatoes, which these are organic. You want to get the sulfite free. Sometimes it's hard to find, but it is worth it. All righty. So put your peppers in here, and I may have to do this in batches. Okay. But I want to put my my tomatoes at the bottom. So when the blade hits it, and I'm going to use my NutriBullet. Also, I'm going to use a little water to get it started. And that's what I mean. Like when I'm making things, it's great that this is pre-measured because I would just be throwing things in just like Mama do. Make some space. Now add the rest of my rough cut onions and peppers. Okay, and I'll go ahead and put our seasonings in there. Our turmeric, 1 tablespoon. Our Himalayan salt, our cumin. This smells so good just on its own. Smoked paprika. I'm gonna have it spicy here with our red chili flakes and our garlic. So the recipe calls for a medium-sized tomato, and I had those little small ones, so I used 3 of them. But the tomato near the blade, so if you're using your regular blender, you want to put them at the bottom, helps with the water, especially when you're working with sun-dried tomatoes. They're very, very dry, but they're very shelf stable. So I love them. I love having them on hand. Put it in my I'll put it in my other Vitamix. I'd like to use the NutriBullet because it is smaller. I'll just have to do more scraping with my Vitamix, but it's almost to the paste. I just wanted to get a little bit more fine, but this is pretty much to the texture that we want. So we have our tomato paste ready to go. And we're just going to mix this with our rice, our cauliflower rice. So I wanted to show you a couple ways to make the rice. So I pre-washed this. You just trim off the bottom. And sometimes I use these leaves. It just depends on, these are a little bit not in the condition that I like, but if the smaller, younger, fresher ones, I'll use those like in stir fries. So this recipe calls for 4 cups of rice. And there's a couple different ways you can make it. Now, somebody asked, do you have to have a food processor? With this one, you don't. You can make your rice just by chopping. You can see that it's very easy to make the rice by chopping. Now, the bigger pieces, as you go inside, you'll want to go over them again and again to make them smaller and to rice-sized pieces. Also, another way that you can make your rice without equipment, or I should say by hand, still a piece of equipment, is with your box shredder. You can shred it and it makes your rice. It makes a nice, really fine rice. But it's nice to have different ways. As you can see, sometimes you'll have to change up your kitchen equipment, especially the power equipment. So it's nice to be able to do it different ways. So I'm just going to continue to make the rice by the chopping board. You can also do it in the food processor. Are there any questions about the rice or anything else we've talked about today?
There's a few. So about the rice, Marianne is asking, can you use a vegetable other than cauliflower?
The rice. Yes, you can. Let me think. What do we use to make rice? Yeah, let me think on that. There is something else that I used to make rice in the past.
No worries.
I want to say it's yucca, but I don't want to misspeak if it's not. It might have been that or yellow squash. But and I'll come back to that. I'll promise you I'll get an answer for you. But what it brings up is one of the reasons why you use cauliflower rice instead of rice. We talked a lot about prediabetes and diabetes, especially as we get older. We become less and less sensitive to our own insulin. And so it's harder to regulate our blood sugar. And in our country, we don't have enough bitters in our foods to offset the use of rice. So sometimes, people say, well, people in other countries eat rice all the time, but also they eat a lot of bitters, which activate the gallbladder and help regulate how the sugar from the rice impacts the body. So all white rice is polished. So all rice is born brown or a color, and that hull is pulled off to make it white. Well, that makes it less fibrous as well. So here's our cauliflower rice. The other part about rice is rice has natural arsenic that can build up in your body, and especially as we age and become menopausal and beyond, post-menopausal, it's harder for the body to detox when it builds up certain minerals. And arsenic is one of those things that are naturally occurring in rice, and it builds up. In the US, we don't really have good farming practices, so we don't really build our soil well. We don't turn over our soil well. We grow the same things over and over again. So when I buy rice, I try not to buy rice that's grown in the US. And, you know, for me personally, because I am menopausal, the cauliflower rice is what I go for. I'm trying to get away from the grains for the reasons we were talking about in terms of the pancreas and sugar sensitivity, insulin sensitivity, I should say. And, but yeah, I'm thinking that it's yellow squash that we can use for rice. I've tried broccoli. It's a whole nother situation, because the broccoli florets are a little bit different, but it will still work. You can still use broccoli. It's just not going to give you a rice mouthfeel or a rice impersonation, because cauliflower is a little bit, because it's white, I think, and because of its texture, it can give you a little more of a like full in your mouth feel for rice. Any other questions?
Yes, so Sheba is asking, do you find that the cauliflower rice is less watery when you use the chopping method?
Definitely, Sheba. I usually for speed, I'll use the food processor. Like I'll even use this food processor, but it is a lot more watery. And since I'm adding my tomato paste to it, I think the chopping board method is better. Even the shredding method. It's just that the shredding method takes longer, and it is 12:30. So it's time to go. So let me quickly mix the paste in here so I can serve you up your Gullah red cauliflower rice. Any questions while I stir?
There's one more. Veronica's asking, do you use fermented food in your diet?
Yes, fermented food is really great. I do a fermented cabbage drink to help with probiotics. You know, of course, I love the pickles. Pickled cabbage is one of my favorite things. But yeah, I definitely feel like philosophically, I feel like it would be great if we could do some fermented food every day. In practice, do I do it every day? No, but I do think that we need it for our gut bacteria. Oh, I forgot to add the onions and the peppers. Sorry for that. I'll put them on the top. Add these in here. So that is your Gullah red rice made with cauliflower. And you can see it's very pretty with your red onion and your red peppers and your rice pieces. And here's our meal, our sweet potato sausage, our rockstar greens, and our red Gullah rice with our sorrel tea. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few ones that came in for the Life Everlasting tea. So Sheba asked, do you strip the leaves off the stem or do you steep it while on the stem? And then Lara Davis also asked for the tea if every ingredient is in equal amounts and how long to steep it for.
Yeah, you can put in however amount you want. The more sorrel, you're going to get the more sour and the more red. The Life Everlasting doesn't really have a flavor or a taste. Like dried, it smells like maple syrup, but when I steep it, it doesn't really have a flavor. So how I make a tea out of it is, yes, we use every single part of it. So I just start cutting from the stem. And so this jar is the jar where I get my tea from. I use the flowers, the stem, the leaf, all of it. That's kind of how you process it. You want to make sure that it's extremely dry. And also in Gullah culture, you just kind of keep dried Life Everlasting around. So you may just have it hanging in your kitchen for good luck and to ward off negative spirits. Is the lore. Any other questions?
One just came in from Miriam who asked, what herb or plant is the Life Everlasting?
You know, I can't pronounce the scientific name, but it does have a long scientific name. It slips my mind, but it's also known as rabbit tobacco. And actually it's indigenous to this part of the country, but it's very hard to cultivate. So you don't see it like in markets. And that's one of the things that I like about it. You usually get it from someone who's gone out and foraged it. But if you Google Life Everlasting or rabbit tobacco, it'll bring up its scientific name. I apologize for not having it in my notes available for you. But the people here really, really believe in it. And it's really a big part of the culture. Even going out, like this is a very marshy region. So you're going out into these marshes where there's snakes and alligators. So it takes something. It takes courage. It takes planning to get your Life Everlasting tea. Sometimes you see it in open fields, but we don't know who those fields belong to. So sometimes that can be an issue. So just getting the tea is kind of like a radical act. And also it has such a good reputation for being anti-inflammatory and promoting health. And that concludes it for me, unless there's any other questions.
Wow, this was an absolutely amazing opportunity to be with you, Carla. And we're so grateful from ZAMI NOBLA to partner with you. This is extraordinary. I also want to encourage those of you who are present today to check out our podcast, the ZAMI NOBLA Podcast, where our most recent episode is with Carla. And she tells us some more about all of this wonderful information she's given us today. And I told her Rockstar Greens is one of my favorite recipes she's done. But you know what? It is, I don't know, it's getting a lot of competition because we've gotten a lot of good recipes today and there's more to come. So if you've enjoyed this opportunity, I want you to share it with others so they can bask in just the wonderful brilliance of Carla and all the information she has given us. And talk about it, appreciate it. Tell us what you thought about this episode. I think Marianne is going to give us some more marching orders on this, but I just wanted to say on behalf of ZAMI NOBLA, Carla, thank you. It's wonderful being in partnership with you, and this has been an extraordinary start to our Plant Play Food series. Thank you.